clock has ticked over to 1:45. All is ready now. Beautiful hot summer's day.
Graham Kersey, Surrey's wicketkeeper today, in the absence of Alex Stewart.
In the game of cricket, generally your wicketkeepers tend to be slightly eccentric's not quite the right word for Scuz, but he was just mad. That would be a good word.
Off the edge and well taken by Graham Kersey. That's a fine catch from a young wicket-keeper who's having an excellent season at the Fosters Oval.
If there's one word to describe Graham, it would be genuine.
If I picture him, it is with a cheeky grin on his face.
Mischievous, without doubt.
Very sort of outgoing, very fun-loving.
He was as full of life as it gets.
All-round good bloke.
Almost impossible to describe him in one word, but if I was only allowed one, it would be energetic, I think.
He was a very lively character. There was always something going on when he was around. There was very sort of, you didn't have a lot of downtime with Graham.
He was a good bloke, he was fun, he was entertaining. He's the sort of bloke you wanted to be around with.
Full of energy, like he probably had too many Red Bulls, but that was just how he lived his life. He was always in a kind of slightly more advanced gear than everybody else.
Endlessly sort of optimistic and great fun to be around.
You knew that if Scuz was there, you'd just have a good night. You would. He was that sort of guy. He was good to be around.
Always laughing, always joking, and someone you just had to be aware of because he'd be playing a trick on you if you weren't careful.
He loved a practical joke in the dressing room, loved it.
They always said, small in size, big in stature.
For a small guy, I think he sort of carried on like he was about 6'6". He was pretty fearless in terms of how he went about everything, really.
What you saw is what you got.
He was born in 1971, in May. His mum and dad were Beryl and Don, who both used to be very involved in the cricket club at Bexley, and he had two older brothers, Ian and Michael.
Well, Don and Beryl would come to most games, particularly Don. I mean, at a young age, playing the county age group stuff, very rare if Don missed a game. Don would do about 50 laps a game. He'd just relentlessly keep walking around, get through about 7 or 8 apples, and he was a great guy to talk to as well.
Well, Don was actually our Colts manager for Graham's year group, under 15. We got to the last 8 in the national in a Texaco trophy where Don was the manager. So I spent a lot of time with him. Always used to say he looked like Blake Carrington out of Dynasty. Ian played a lot of cricket at Bexley, so I played quite a lot of cricket with him. Graham played his cricket at Phoenix Cricket Club in Bexley Heath, and he also was a very good footballer. I think he was a fullback, and I know he played for Bexley District. I first met Graham when he was playing for Phoenix, and they were playing against Bexley in sort of indoor cricket in the winter, and then in the sort of Colts leagues. One of my best friends, Stuart Hume at the time, he went to school with Graham, so that was the link really. So he would say, well, there's this guy who plays for Phoenix, good cricketer, we need to try and get him to come and play at Bexley, so sort of needed to befriend him a bit. And he was the sort of cheeky, confident cricketer playing for Phoenix, who was by far their best player. And it had already been mentioned by some of the people in our team that we'd like him to come and join Bexley. And I think he quite liked that because he knew that sort of people were quite sought after of his talents, and he played up to it basically. But I always remember him from then. And as everyone says about him, he's that sort of cheeky grin on him, like a Cheshire cat.
So basically back in the day you played for your clubs, so mine was Dartford, Scuzzer's was Bexley, you played for your club, and then after that there was a level called district level, where the county was split into regions and you play at district level, and then from there they'd pick the best players out of district to play county cricket, and that started at under 11s and went through to, in those days, through to 19s.
And originally he didn't really do any wicket keeping, which is quite strange considering the career he ended up having. So he would play a bit of Kent schools cricket just as a batsman, and then he started to do a bit of keeping around the age of 14 and 15, because it was always joked that his older brother Ian was a much better keeper than him, which he didn't like either. But yeah, he very quickly progressed through the Kent setup. When we were about 15, 16, we were sort of used to get brave and go up to London for the first time. And I remember going to Charing Cross once. We were going to Covent Garden, and we came out, and I didn't really know where I was going. And he said, "Well, I know where we're going." And he took me across Trafalgar Square, and he said, "I said, well, where's Covent Garden?" And he said, "You see that building there?" He said, "That's New Zealand House." He said, "But you're never going to need to go there because you haven't been picked for the New Zealand tour." And I'll always remember that. And he said it was such joy, which it shouldn't have been funny, but it was.
The only white Christmas the Kent schools cricket team are looking forward to is in their sports kit on the playing fields of New Zealand. Though they fly out later this evening, practice makes perfect, and there's no concession to the British winter. That's because their first match is only 2 days away in Singapore, a brief stopover before the tour starts in earnest. The best school cricketers in Kent have raised £1,000 each to spend the next 6 weeks on the other side of the world. The merry-go-round of fundraising fetes and dinners were inspired by a star of another sport, footballer John Hollins, now manager of First Division Chelsea. His son Chris from Tunbridge School is the team star batsman.
The New Zealand trip was a trip for an under-17 Kent team, or Kent squad, which was Graham's age group, and they had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a 6 or 7 week tour to Singapore and New Zealand, where they played against various states out there and had the time of their life.
So I would have first met him on our build up to the tour of New Zealand, 87, 88, Kent schools trip, 6 weeks, unbelievable opportunity. We had a week in Singapore, 5 weeks on the North Island of New Zealand, and we did quite a lot of fundraising for the trip. So it probably would have been at our get-togethers before then. He was a year older than me, so I didn't know a lot of the guys on that trip particularly well.
We found out 2 years in advance that we were going to go, which was a bit surreal, and then we all had sort of 18 months to raise enough money, because I can't remember how much it was exactly, but it would have been a few quid obviously. So we had about 18 months to raise the money, and then yeah, just 6 weeks, a week in Singapore, 5 weeks in New Zealand. Not bad at 17, that. I think from memory, Sundays used to be our travel day, because it was a lot of travelling, but it was all done on a Sunday, and then we had 3 minibuses. The kit would all go in one, and then we'd all pile in the other 2, and they were long trips. You could be 5-6 hours travelling. So yeah, Sundays was our travel day, but there was a lot of cricket, there was, which was what we were there for, but it was good cricket, so there was no complaints. And we went fishing over Christmas.
We were on Lake Taupo, which I think was the trout capital of the world. And we were expected for everybody to catch fish. I think he was the only one who did.
And he got the biggest fish, and he let everyone know about it, and yeah.
And he was just on great form. So I remember him catching that fish, being full of beans.
You can't beat that at a young age. 5-6 weeks in Singapore, New Zealand, fantastic.
Then an opportunity arose to go onto the staff at Kent as a sort of reserve keeper when I think he would only been about 18, 19. So it was quite a rapid rise from somebody who sort of started quite late in the sort of Kent Schools setup.
I think he would have joined the staff maybe a year before me because he was a year older, and we overlapped probably. He was off to Surrey probably a year down the line, but I remember the first pre-season. As junior players on a county staff, you don't get a lot of time in the nets with bat in hand. All the senior players get first dibs at that. So we spent a lot of time just throwing balls at each other. One-handed catches, diving catches, very short, sharpy kind of stuff that we both benefited from. But I can remember doing that with him every day, probably for 3 weeks in pre-season.
Scruffy little individuals is how I define wicket keepers, and he fitted the mould. Off the pitch, perfect. You know, attire was great, looked the part. On the pitch, you like rolling around in the mud. That's what all wicket keepers do. That's their job. And it was our job as bowlers to throw the ball everywhere to make their life difficult.
He wasn't the best looking wicketkeeper, and when I say that I don't mean like model, I mean as in the way he moved, and he didn't make it look pretty, but he was so effective.
He's basically just got to make sure he catches everything and doesn't drop anything, and then he's fine. It's a very unforgiving job. You're probably, you know, 50 over game, you'll get 300 balls come your way possibly, and there might only be one catch that comes along. You drop that and everyone's on your back. So it's a job that I never fancied whatsoever.
I think he was there for about 2 or 3 years, but opportunities were limited because the keeper was the keeper, and unless he got injured, he didn't play. So he only ever played a handful of games, although he did make his debut, ironically, for Kent against Surrey at the Oval.
First memories were probably when he was in opposition, when he was playing for Kent. So it would have been second team cricket at some point. And the first impression, I guess, was that he was an annoying little shit, which is often the way you view people when they're in the other side, you know, because he sort of stood out. He was a character, but also a real competitor. And so, of course, when he comes onto your side, that's the best possible attribute that he can have. He really got under other people's skins when you played against them.
He got signed for Surrey in 1993, off the back, I think, of a game at Oxted where Graham got 120 in the first innings, and the coach of Surrey, Graham Clinton, must have taken note, because it was over that course of that summer/winter that they inquired about him signing. Ironically, in those days, you couldn't just sign somebody because people didn't really move from counties, and Kent contested his release of his out from Kent to Surrey, so it all had to go to like the ECB, and they had to determine whether it was okay that Graham moved to Surrey, which we thought was quite comical, that there was 2 counties sort of fighting over him when he hadn't really played much.
Yeah, so Scuz joined us in '93. I was playing for England then, so he needed a good keeper.
First time I remember him at Surrey would have been, we heard that we had a new wicketkeeper joining us, and this chap that we'd all seen from Kent turned up, walked into the dressing room area, big smile on his face, greeted everybody like they were a long lost friend. I
think it was a big thing because obviously he'd been at Kent, you know, he knew everybody. I don't think he particularly really knew anyone at Surrey, and it's quite a, as I say, the Oval, test match ground, and some big names playing for them. So I think it was quite daunting, but he didn't really seem to faze him. He seemed to take to it well, and I think as one of his biggest strengths was, you know, being part of a team and getting on with people. And I think he very quickly made friends there with, you know, his sort of Adam Hollyoak, Mark Butcher, those type of people. So yeah, I think he settled in there very quickly. And obviously he got more opportunity there to play and to sort of create a bit of a role for himself within the team.
Graham was say very popular within the dressing room. His close mates I'd be saying would be the likes of your Adam Hollyoaks, Mark Butchers, Graham Thorpe. Those two got on very well. The partnership relationship I had with him was good. We worked together, help each other. You might say I hate that junior senior, but I was that little bit more senior and more experienced. So could I offer some advice there? But vice versa, he would challenge me as well, because no one has a divine right to play in the side. So he was a top keeper, and therefore we worked together. We learnt off each other. But I'd call it a real partnership, a good relationship, and that was healthy, and that's what you want.
He brought a lot to the team on the pitch, and as I say, his antics off the pitch kept everybody going. And of course you had Adam as well in those days, who was just emerging as well, who then went on to become the captain, and a lot of them went on to play internationally, which showed the quality of that period coming through.
And that group was kind of coming into its own as far as playing first team cricket and all the rest of it were concerned. And so there was a real camaraderie around them. We were all similar ages, all trying to sort of push our careers forward. And Graham was very much part of that.
To play at the Oval it's a test ground, so it's a special ground. He'd have grown up wanting to play at Canterbury for Kent because that was his county as a youngster. But to have the ability to play at a test ground with the history that goes with it or comes with it was big. I say back then, they said it's full up, was it 18, 20,000 back in the day? But to come and play at a test ground, special. Whether you play at Lord's, whether you play at the Oval, Trentbridge, name them all, it just adds that little bit more. The facilities generally are just that little bit better, and you're walking out on the field of play where some of the greats of the game have played.
They played the first ever international cricket game there, first ever international game of rugby, and the first FA Cup final. So in terms of history, it's the most famous ground in the world. I know everyone says Lord's, but it's a great place to be. I mean, when you're playing for Surrey, you feel the history of the place, all the great players that have been there. Bradman played his last innings there. Surrey had a great side from the 50s that won 7 championships in a row. So when you're there, you feel like you're a part of history, and it's a special place.
It would have been a big move as far as Graham was concerned, basically from the point of view that it would have been a terrific place to kind of like to realise whatever ambitions he had outside of playing county cricket, because he almost immediately he had opportunities to play first team cricket and all the rest of it, and he hadn't really had that chance at Kent at the time.
We had a coach called David Gilbert, Lizard, and he was a really fun coach, but also very competitive. And he used to do this game where he'd hit catches to you. You'd have to catch 20 before you got to go inside. So we're playing a game against Essex, and I think they started this game. The game started at 11 a.m. They started this game at about 25 past 10.
Dave Gilbert would stand there with a bat and just smash these balls at him as hard as he could, left, right, up, down, whatever. And until he caught 20 on the bounce, he wouldn't come off the park. This was Graham's thing. I will catch 20 before I come back in.
And he was diving to catch them, and he'd get to 18, and then the coach would hit one really hard to his left, and he might just drop it and then be back to 0.
And the amount of times he'd walk back up the stairs dripping with sweat 2 minutes before we were about to go back out on the field to play. And that was kind of, that summed up his determination and his work ethic and the way that he wanted to, to be the best that he possibly could.
One thing about Scuz, he'd never give up. He'd never give up.
He was very driven in terms of wanting to get better and to put his career where I felt it could be, which was I felt he'd be good enough to play for England at some point. And then off the field, he was just a laugh a minute, just a terrific teammate, great friend, and somebody that you love to be around.
He was one of the great characters and a great team man. Most of them revolved around drunken activities that we got up to of an evening. I thought we always stayed at this particular hotel. We went out after the game had finished, and we went out and had a few drinks, maybe a few too many. And then when we came back to the hotel, Graham tried to find the night porter or, you know, the concierge because he wanted some room service, but couldn't find anyone anywhere. So he was walking around the lobby trying to go. He thought maybe the night porter's at the back, so he goes out there and he walks into this kitchen and he thought, well, I'll make myself a sandwich. So he starts making himself a sandwich, and eventually someone comes in and goes, what the hell are you doing in here? He goes, oh, I'm staying here. And they said, what room are you in? He goes, I'm in room 645 or whatever it was. And they said, we don't have a room 645 in here. He was in the wrong hotel. So I think that's an all-time favourite. I think that takes some beating.
When I was on first class, or championship debut here against Surrey, 1993, would have been, I think, his first year at Surrey. And I remember when Joey was running in at the top of his mark, or just about to run in, I could hear this little high-pitched kind of, come on lads, he's been out here a long time in the field. He's, you know, I just thought, yeah, I can hear you. And then sure enough, schnick, and he's there and he's throwing it up. But yeah, we would have had a beer afterwards, and there was no malice in it, but it was, you know, he was out to get you.
We were playing a second team game, a 4-day game or 3-day game down at Leicester, and he was playing really well, and he got this short ball from one of the sort of like the veteran Leicestershire players, and he pulled him. This massive six bounced off a tin roof on one of the old stands there at Leicester. And then the next ball, the guy's got steam coming out of his ears, and the very next ball, the guy ran up and bowled it to him, and Graham got in behind it and just knocked it back down the pitch. And he picked the ball up and he just yelled at him, why didn't you pull that fuck of a six? And Graham just cheekily looked at him and went, because it wasn't short and shit like the last one. Which had all of the bowler's teammates falling around laughing.
I always remember two things he said. He said that Mark Butcher is the best player of quick bowling and he will play Test match cricket for England, which he got right. And he also said that Adam Hollyoake is the hardest man he's ever seen, and he's a brilliant boxer. And he ended up doing professional boxing. I can feel it.
Now, when it comes to getting fit for the new season, the counties have various different techniques of getting themselves ready, but none, I'm sure, have ever embarked upon the course of action that the Surrey boys tried this year.
It is bizarre, you know, it's a lot very different, and people will probably laugh at it, but I think in that respect, you know, it's going to stand people in good stead for when the going gets tough out on the pitch.
He does work as hard, but sort of get the benefits of it. And, but I won't be too sad when the season starts anyway. Finish doing this.
You know, let's face it, boxing ain't easy. You know, when you got to go out there and learn things, I mean, nobody ain't going to stand up and let you hit them freely. And it's quite different in there to cricketers, but they're keen up, and the thing is that they're willing to learn, and it's all part of it. If they go down a gym and do something, you know, you never know, you know, but too late to be a champion, you know, but they'll be champion in cricket. You know?
He was incredibly athletic, I mean, really, really strong, which meant that he moved superbly, you know, standing back to the quick stuff. He could take some, you know, fantastic diving catches, leg side takes, all that kind of thing. And he was pretty skillful standing up to the stumps. So he had really, really good hands, watched the ball incredibly closely. And as I said, worked at it like a dog as well. You know, it wasn't just something that he rocked up and did because he had a bit of talent. He worked unbelievably hard to get better and better every day.
In his last year that he played at Surrey, he was the joint leading victims, dismissals as a wicketkeeper. I think he got 68. And I think at that time, it was a time when there was a lot longer tours in the winter, so they took bigger squads and they would always take a second wicketkeeper. And I think he thought that, you know, if his progression continued for another couple of years and he worked on his batting, scored more runs, then, you know, his keeping was up to standard. And, you know, he didn't talk about it, you know, particularly, but I think he thought that there could be an opportunity on the sort of trajectory that he was on at sort of in his mid-20s, that if, you know, another 2 or 3 years. And I think you look at some of the people who went on England tours over the sort of 10 years after that as the second wicketkeeper, you know, he wouldn't have been beyond the realms of possibility. Who knows?
So back in the day, you're only contracted for 6 months each year. You know, it was 1st of April to the last day of September. Then for the winter months, it sounds silly because it's professional sport, but you then had to fill those 6 months. So as a youngster, and a little bit older, but early on in your career, you would go overseas, whether it's South Africa, Australia, wherever, to further your career. A bit of an apprenticeship. I went to Perth, to Midland Guildford Cricket Club for 7 consecutive years from the age of 17. And loved it. It helped develop my game. So everyone, I say everyone, exaggeration, but majority of players back then would have spent at least one winter overseas.
Back then it was pretty much, Australia was the number one. They have a massive sort of club cricket set up there. And, you know, the Australian cricketers, the non-first class players would come and play in English club cricket over here in the summer too.
Back then you were allowed, I think it was only allowed one overseas cricketer, and Carl Rackerman, we brought him over as a strike bowler, overseas strike bowler, and those two struck up, you know, a great relationship.
Carl was our overseas player and must have been 95, and Carl and Graham got on like a house on fire. They were really good mates.
And he got Graham to go back because he played at Western Suburbs as well. So they hit it off together in the summer that year. So that's why Graham went out there that winter to play.
I was out in Australia with him in 1996. We had a tour out there with England A, and I was part of that. When that tour finished, I stayed behind for a week to spend some time with Scuz. And we went down to the Gold Coast for a week and just hung out. We were just enjoying some time together. He was probably my closest friend in the team. He dropped me at the airport. I was flying back to England because it was just before Christmas Eve.
Graham dropped Adam Hollyoake off at the airport, and then he was driving to Carl Rackerman's farm, which is in north of Queensland, and he had a head-on collision with another vehicle.
And when I landed back in England, it was Carl Rackerman who rang me and told me what had happened. So, yeah, it was strange because at that stage I'd never lost anyone in my life, and I didn't think that the way it was being described, I just thought from what it sounded like we'd had a crash and he was a little bit injured and he was in a coma, but he was going to wake up and everything was going to be fine. Maybe that was wishful thinking, maybe that was me being naive.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a huge shock. It was a bit surreal at first to hear that news. I didn't really probably understand the full extent of it. I was made aware that his mum and dad, Beryl and Don, were flying out there, so I knew it must be serious. But yeah, just shock really. But I don't think at the time I realised just how serious it was.
We were in Zimbabwe, in Harare. We had come back from training, and myself and Graham Thorpe heard the news. We were together, and it was Christmas time. It was horrendous. I mean, even now, it sends sort of shivers to me now.
Yeah, so it was New Year's Day. I'd come back from an event on New Year's Eve, got back to my house, and when I came into the house, Steve Ruddock, who was the Bexley captain, was at my house, which was very unusual. And I looked at him and I sort of knew straight away that something was up.
His funeral was packed out. I mean, there must have been over 500 people there.
I'll always remember that. I've never seen so many people at a funeral. Turned up at Eltham. It was like, well, it wasn't even standing room only because people couldn't get into the crematorium. Incredible turnout of cricketers of various different standings. I think it's probably the sort of first time in my mid-20s, sort of cruised through life up to that point without anything too major going wrong. And I think, having been so close with Graham, having lived together for the sort of 2 or 3 years before, yeah, it's certainly, I think it did have a real big impact on my life. I think Graham sort of used to live by a few sayings, like he always used to say to me about never die wondering, which I didn't really get the context of at the time, and I'm not sure he did, but it's like, you know, with what happened to him, I sort of then decided that I wanted to try and, I don't know, just do more, make more, not sort of wait around for things to happen, because you never know what's going to happen when you're in when you're in your 20s. You don't expect that to happen to one of your best friends. So yeah, I think it probably is the single most thing that's happened to me that has affected me the most, to be honest.
I think the thing that he left me was the idea of, you know, the idea of kind of working as hard as you possibly can, and that went for everything. That went for off the field and on the field, really. Give everything as good a crack as you possibly can. Because again, that was him. You know, if he was going to do something, whatever it was, whether it was good or bad, he'd do it 100%. And that was definitely a legacy from him.
I think when you think about him, you tend to smile, because you tend to think of his smile and his happy demeanour, and I think that's the kind of infectious character he was, and that's how I think most of us would remember him.
Like every year we have a meet up. It's usually the first Saturday in January. We get anyone from Bexley or played with him at county level, and we have a good drink for him. We do that every year, and it's something we'll just keep doing. So Mobes organises it, and well, he just doesn't even have to organise it. He's just a given that we're all turn up. It's the same pub in Bexley Village we'll go to, and yeah, that'll never stop.
Neil Moby, a good friend of his from Bexley, has organised it for the last 27, 28 years, and we reminisce about the New Zealand tour and old times, and that's lovely, because those things can lose a bit of oomph and you just kind of fade away and do your own things, and people can be forgotten about. But I don't think Graham ever has, because that's a tradition that his mates have kept going, and long may it continue.
As I say, he had, although he wasn't around for a hell of a long time, there's a lot of memories and stories about times we shared together that continually get recycled.
But there's a photo just to my right here of me giving Scuz his county cap, and that photo I took over this office in 2014, and I've had that photo hanging up there since then, and it will remain up there. So do I think of him every day? Yes, because when I come in, it is there.
He's one of the great funny men of our time. So I always have a little smile to myself when it gets to New Year's Eve. I'm like, you little bastard, you've ruined every single New Year's Eve for the rest of my life, because all I ever do on New Year's Eve is think of him.
I think the main thing about Graham, which is just a testament to, I mean, there's lots of stories anyone can tell, and you know, again, we always remember all the good times, etc. But I think the biggest testament to him is that wherever he went, whether it be Kent, Surrey, Bexley, you know, he was always very, very highly thought of, and that can only be backed up by now, 30 years on, how many people still, you know, he's still very relevant, which, you know, sort of defies logic a bit with the length of time that's gone past. And as I say, I find it amazing every year that, you know, people will come and sort of remember him, and yeah, I think it's just a testament to him and how well he was thought of. And I guess I think if you met Graham and you spent a bit of time with him, it wasn't a sort of a vanilla experience. There'd always be something that happened, or something that you did, or, you know, he was just that sort of bundle of energy that something was always going on, whether it be to do with cricket or it just to be to do with off the pitch. And I think that's borne out by, you know, his memory now. And I think it's the sort of biggest legacy of him is that, you know, considering, you know, he sadly died so young, he didn't have a lot of time to make a lot of memories. There are still so many, and I think that's the biggest thing that I always, you know, as his friend, are very proud of, the fact that, you know, so many people are still keen to remember him and to just go over those stories again. And, you know, I think that's the biggest testament to him, which I hope makes his family proud, because it makes me very proud.
Oh, crazy for thinking that my love could do. Hold you, hold you, hold you. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying. I'm crazy loving you. Save it to the end, it's got a weak finish. Crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying, and I'm crazy for loving you. Graham. Right,